All right, Alexander, let's do a live stream. Let's answer the questions from a live stream with Alex from Reporterfy and Patrick Lancaster. And let's begin with Commander Crossfire, who says, Thanks for everything you do, Patrick. Stay safe.
I think we all say that too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Michael Sherry says, Good to see Patrick Lancaster here. Thank you for your work. History is on your side.
Yeah, and we're honoured to have him. And we agree with that also.
Yes, Mike Fax, thanks you for your super sticker. Commander Crossfire says, Hope the war in Western Russia ends soon. Too many Russians suffering without electricity or water in the cities like Kiev and Odessa. Out with the Notezes. N-O-T-Z-E-S.
Yeah, I think
Commander Crossfire.
Certainly we all want to see the end of this war.
Florentina Cotta, thank you for that super sticker. Seku Drame, thank you for that super sticker. Raphael says, in 98, I was in Bosnia as part of the NATO forces. The U.S. is taking the Napoleon's army with them to fight Russia. They all hate each other. Russia knew it. TM.
That is a very, very insightful comment. It's a very good comment indeed. And I think you're right. I think that just as happened, I mean, people don't often realise it, but Napoleon's army, which invaded Russia in 1812, I mean, the core of it was French, but all around it, there were all kinds of allies, Prussians, Austrians, Poles, Italians, and many, many of them really didn't get on with each other. So the Italians didn't like the Austrians, the Prussians didn't like some of the Saxons. I mean, it was a mess. And as the war progressed, they all started to divide against each other. The Prussians went over to the Russian side. All kinds of things began to go wrong. And it may be that we'll see the same process again, because this does have some similarities. So it's a very interesting comment. Thank you.
El Loco says, May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, El Loco, for that. Lover of the Russian team says, God bless the Russian Federation. Great to see Patrick. Stay safe. Yov Bressler, thank you for that super chat. Golden Silence says, the Duran, God bless you, Patrick. I hope you're keeping a backup of all the video you have documented. Keep up the good work. Stay safe. God bless.
I'm sure Patrick does. He's the kind of work he does. I'm sure he has that backup.
Yeah. Amos Burton says, coffee for Patrick and best wishes to all Russians frontline. Michael B, thank you for that super sticker. Lorraine, thank you for that super sticker. Stas, thank you for that super chat. Not a Band Account says, when will Putin and generals face war crime trials?
In the wet dreams of Biden, Dulan, one of those people, but never in actual fact.
From Golden Silence, Alex and Alexander, can you please get with the MSM narrative? Would it kill you to say the Russians are hurling appliances and bicycles at the Ukrainians?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it would hurt us hugely. I'm sure we're getting lots of reports to that effect all over Ukraine. And, of course, that's why Ukraine is now full of bicycles and other appliances. But seriously, we mustn't make too many jokes about this. I mean, it is the situation in Ukraine is getting grim. I mean, just a few minutes before Alex and I started this video, I was reading in The Guardian, of all places, a long report about how the Ukrainian government is now trying to urge people in Kiev to stock up with food and cold clothing for the cold weather and all that kind of thing. So, I mean, the situation there is terrible, and it's getting worse all the time. And one shouldn't, as I said, make too many jokes about it.
Rice says U.S. has heavily and poorly invested $100 billion USD into the failed dry dream fictional fantasy policy.
Yes, I completely agree. And one day, there will be a demand for an account for all of this. I don't think it's going to be very long, by the way.
Robin R., thank you for that super chat. Meg Galucci, thank you for that super sticker. Not a Band Account says, will the USA openly send combat troops to help soon?
I think if that ever happens, I think there will be a lot of political problems in the United States. I get the overwhelming sense, and the opinion polls confirm this, that the American people would not support that move. And I think that there would be immense resistance in Congress as well. We might even see some Democrats starting to peel off. And I think that they might do it surreptitiously. After all, they've already got boots on the ground. But they won't do it openly.
Command Unit says, was leaving Kherson and the winter offensive connected to each other because of Nord Stream's being destroyed and peace became impossible?
I think that's probably true, actually. I mean, Surovikin made the decision to pull back from Kherson region. It's now clear, you're getting more and more reports about this from the British media, by the way. British media covering this very much, perhaps because the British were so keen on the Kherson offensive, that Kherson city is basically untenable from a Ukrainian point of view. They have the Russians just a kilometre away on the other side of the river, able to lob mortar bombs and shells and whatever it is. They've had to take away what's left of the civilian population. Apparently there aren't many Ukrainian troops there, because if they do, they get shelled all the time. So Ukrainian General Staff said it was a trap. It's starting to look like that. And of course, what it's done is it's enabled the Russians to build up their forces on the East Bank and parry any counteroffensive that the Ukrainians launched there, even as they're preparing their own. And I'm sure that you're right about, the fact that Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2, which, by the way, Putin discussed in a telephone call with Scholz. He said it was a terrorist attack. I think all of that points, again, would have persuaded the Russians again that this is a war that's going to be fought over a long time. They need to consolidate their troops. They need to build up their forces. And that's what they're doing.
Golden Silence says, Slava cocaina. Cocaina is a hell of a drug.
I wouldn't know. I've never
tried
it. I've never, nor do I ever intend to. Carry on.
No, not a band account says there are Russian nationals living unsupervised in NATO countries. Will they be interred to prevent espionage? It's legal. Korematsu versus the United States.
Well, that of course is a terrible decision of the Supreme Court, and I think virtually every jurist now acknowledges that decision about the internment of Japanese people by the United States was one of the most shameful acts, one of the most shameful legal decisions ever made in the United States, and I think it's been repudiated. I wonder sometimes, not a band account, on what you're up to. Are you being provocative in order to get us questions, or is it that you're just being provocative? Anyway, I don't think this is going to happen, but I will say that if it does, and, levels of Russophobia have never been greater, if anything like that happens, it will be a dark page in Western history. It will be worse than what happened to the Japanese during the Second World War, because at least Japan and the United States were actually at war. We are not at war with Russia.
Ronald B. says, what are the prospects if Poland attacks West Ukraine? Russian attack on Poland, NATO involvement, nuclear exchange?
Well, this is a good question, and I don't know. I mean, I cannot imagine that if the Poles do move into Western Ukraine, they will do so without authorization from the United States. I mean, I think they would have to have a green light from the United States. Now, I've actually had a look into this, and there's a number of problems. Firstly, it seems the Polish army isn't very large. It's about 70,000 men in total. And a lot of its heavy equipment has already been supplied to Ukraine, so they're quite short of that. It seems that they would not be in a position, realistically, to fight the Russians by themselves. So that is already a big constraining factor. And I think that for Poland to march in with a lightly armed and rather limited force against the Russians with their hypersonic missiles and their, well, Colonel McGregor says 1,500 tanks on the way. Well, I think that would be a reckless thing to do. And I'm beginning to wonder whether it's really going to happen.
Kjat Dig says, best geopolitics show in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. And Clear NFO says, no rant available at this time. Thank you for that. Raphael says, Russia, China, most of the other countries, now the formula to crush these fake movements now is to locate the foreign reps, arrest and dispose them.
I think that's exactly what they're doing. I think what you're seeing in Russia, what you're seeing in China is that they're gradually closing down all of the NGOs. The NGOs can to some extent still operate from abroad. But of course, with the cutting off of the SWIFT systems, with the breakdown in the movement of international money flows and all that kind of thing, it becomes ever more difficult to keep your people in these other countries, in Russia and China, supported in the way that it has been. So I'm going to make a guess. I think over the next few years, we're going to see all of this kind of playbook, colour revolution, street theatre. I think we're going to see it ebb away.
Elza says, the problem with the Western media, how do you know when the liars are probably telling the truth? You assume they lie, no matter China or Ukraine.
This is exactly true. And unfortunately, it is a real problem because when you're told things that are untrue all the time, you might be told something that is true. But by that point, your cynicism about this has become so corrosive that you don't believe anything. That's what happened, by the way, in the last years of the Soviet Union. People in the Soviet Union had come to distrust their media so much that even when it was telling the truth, they didn't believe it.
E82 says Nigerian government refused to release Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Charges against him were dropped by the court. Genocide against Biafrans continue on a daily basis.
Biafrans. This is, of course, goes all the way back to the 60s. Biafra was a breakaway state from Nigeria that tried to break away. It was the major oil region of Nigeria. That led to a ferocious, terrible civil war in which there was massive food shortages in Biafra. When I first came to Britain, when I came to settle in Britain, not the first time I came to Britain, when I came to settle in Britain in the late 60s, it was absolutely the big subject. I am not familiar with what's going on there today, but I would not be surprised if problems in that region continue still.
John Matthew says, small contribution for Patrick. Question for Alexander. How this conflict can end? Can DE afford long-term LNG cost? Can LNG provide the same heating in the DE?
No, is the short answer. How does it end? I don't know that any of us knows. And I think Western leaders are starting to realise that they have no plan C. But as we're going to discuss in a video, in a separate video, Alex and I don't think they have an answer to. I think they're struggling to come up with some idea for a plan C. But of course, they can't bring themselves to formulate anything that's realistic because of the extreme positions that they've taken.
Commander Crossfire says, huge protests in Canada. Fascist Putin puppets steal their bank accounts and throw in jail. Small protests in China. They just want freedom. How dare China?
Absolutely. That's a very good point, actually.
Jamila Asfu says, thank you so much for bringing another SID. I'm not sure. Thank you so much for bringing another SID. Thank you for that. Mason Mead says, great show. God bless. Death says, good morning from Boulder, Colorado. It's getting bad here economically, as I have many friends that work in ski resorts that are laying off their staff during the current and upcoming ski season.
Oh dear, I'm very sorry to hear that. And believe me, I'm sure that the problems that you describe are very real. But I mean, problems in Europe are escalating as well. Problems in Britain are absolutely horrific.
Raphael says Russia will take over all Ukraine, period.
I have to say, I agree. John Helmer has written an interesting article in which he's talked about a possible partition plan, which apparently is being discussed in Moscow, with southern and eastern Ukraine and including Odessa, by the way, and Kharkiv becoming part of Russia, a demilitarized zone, and then a sort of rump Ukrainian state left beyond that. I have to say, I think there may be some people in Moscow who still think like that, but I think that their number is dwindling as the realities of this war impose their own solutions.
Susie QRN, thank you for that super chat. Mehdi says, in the end, will we see a BRICS create its own human rights commission if the UN does nothing in regards to Western violations? Long live the truth, long live the Duran.
I think it's only a question of time. But do bear something in mind, that the BRICS states collectively have all, and that includes India, by the way, have all said that they do not intend to weaponize human rights in the way that the West has done. So, they might conceivably do something like that, but I don't think they will ever make it the centerpiece of their policy in the way that the United States and the West do.
Global Pandemic Treaty says, respect for you, Patrick from India. I know Republic TV didn't do justice to you, but that didn't stop you from showing the truth. Ukraine did in Donbass.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Patrick is of the US.
Can I just say, I think Patrick is one of the key witnesses. And when this conflict is over, I mean, I think the fact that he recorded it in the way that he did will endure. It will continue to retain its value.
Summer of 1970 says, my country, the USA, is occupied by a hostile cabal that detests its citizens, then uses a militarized police force to ensure its edicts.
I have to say, I agree. And of course, this is the topic that we discuss often when we have Robert Barnes on our programs. I'm getting more depressed by the United States. I mean, I think that, I still hope and believe that it will come through, but I'm, becoming ever more aware of the enormous challenges that it faces.
Harry C. Smith says, haven't Russian army engineers followed behind the troops to rebuild destroyed cities already, like Mariupol? Is this accurate, and how's it going?
Yeah, we had a brief discussion about that with Patrick after the program, and he did say, that there's been a lot of work done in Mariupol, but of course it's only the start, and it will take a very long time for the place to be fully put together. I think once peace is achieved, you will probably see a major construction program, just as you saw in Chechnya. If you go to, Grozny today, the extent of its reconstruction apparently is remarkable. And I suspect you'll probably see the same in the Donbass eventually. And can I say, all of these places in eastern Ukraine, in Ukraine itself, become very, very run down. They became very run down towards the end of the Soviet era because the Soviets had so many economic problems. And of course, they became far more run down during the Ukraine period. So what will replace them will be much more modern, much more interesting, probably.
Ernest Gibson, thank you for that super chat. Eric, thank you for that super sticker. Rufus says, thanks for having Patrick Lancaster on your show again. His reporting gives unique insight into this war, which no one else does as well as Patrick.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Skip Moyer says, can we discuss ways for people to stand up to this crap? Invite your audience to create many small local groups to pressure reps and media. No cost or need to march. More at Watchdog at locals.
Yeah, absolutely. I always encourage people to organize. I don't want to be too prescriptive. And of course, the other thing is, we don't want to tell people to do something which might get them into difficulties. I mean, somebody brought up the Canadian protests and the way in which people's money was taken. And I wouldn't want to be in any way responsible for anything like that. But engaging in political activity, legal, lawful political activity, is somebody's right, and we should all do it.
OG Wall says, just wondering if Alexander still has that bridge for sale in the UK, thinking I'm on the wrong side of something / history. Are we the baddies?
Oh, of course I've got that bridge for sale. I've also got the Eiffel Tower too, if you want it. No, absolutely.
Vilma S,
we are on the wrong side of history in the UK. And again, there's a lot to say about that. I said I was depressed about America. I'm far more depressed about the state of my own country, Britain.
Vilma S, thank you for that super sticker. Rutovich says Musk wants power. That's it.
Yeah, you're quite likely. I mean, it's a strange business. Anyway, carry on.
Raphael says London is 4 minutes, so Ireland and Scotland need to come out and let it known that they are not in this. Okay, 11. And warheads, am I going to say? All I am going to say.
I'm not sure I've followed all of that. But if you're suggesting that, the different regions of the British Isles are going to start breaking away from London's grip, I mean, I may not have got this correct, and that may not be what you're trying to say. But if it is, I agree with you.
And Frankie Boy says Musk is equal to controlled opposition. It's all theater. Enjoy the show.
Well, I mean, Alex gave a very, very good answer to this. I've really nothing to add.
That's a good way to end this Q&A. Thank you, everybody. Take care.